Okay, so this weekend, UFC 282. It's going to be a good one. It's a big one.
Yeah.
We get some predictions from you. First of all, we got 39-year-old Jan Blachowicz against Magomed Ankalaev. How are you feeling about that?
I think it's a very good fight. I think, in my opinion, Ankalaev is the new generation of that division. I think he's very, very talented, and I see him going in there against a former champion and getting a dominant win.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think it's as simple as that. I think he's very talented, very well rounded, and I think it will take a lot for him to not get the W.
He's a superstar, isn't he? He's at the peak of his powers against someone who's probably fading out a little bit. So, but yeah, should be a good one. Next up, Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon. How you seeing that?
So I would be a very, very, very bad teammate if I didn't say Jared Gordon, because I do train with him.
Okay.
However, I think Jared has to do a lot to beat Paddy. I think Paddy poses a lot of threats. He's very unorthodox. He's very awkward. And it's hard to spar. It's hard to prepare for someone like a Paddy. If Jared goes out there and does what I think he can, I can see him coming away with the win. But it's one I'm very, very interested in seeing myself. So on the basis of teammate bias, I have to say Jared.
Fair enough. Okay, next up, we've got Darren Till, veteran, up against Dricus du Plessis.
Yeah, it's a very interesting fight because you've got Dricus, who is, again, a bit kind of wild, a bit like likes to get in those kind of gunfights. And you've got someone like Darren, who hasn't fought, and I think it's since September of 2021 when he lost to Derek Brunson. So it's a big fight for Darren. And I think he can get the win. And I think it would be big for him and the UFC for him to get the win. So I'll say Darren. That no one when he's training. Yeah, no, he's training out on All Stars. I mean, I'd like to see Darren go out there and get the win, because it would do a lot for the middleweight division if he gets the win. So I think I'd like to see him win for the potential matchups he possesses in the division.
Yeah, okay. One for the future. Yeah, see how it turns out. All right.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, next up, Bryce Mitchell versus Ilia Topuria.
It's a great fight. If I'm not mistaken, I think both guys are undefeated. I could be wrong on that. I believe both of them might be. I think it's a very, very good fight. I think both guys are very well rounded. I think Ilia Topuria is going to get the win. I think everyone thinks of Bryce Mitchell as a star in that weight class, and I think that Topuria has the tools to go out there and get the W.
Yeah. Which fight are you looking forward to seeing most on Saturday out of the four that we just spoke about?
I think the most interesting fight is Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon. I think Jared is a very solid competitor. He's very good everywhere. I think Paddy obviously has the hype. He's got this persona. He's got the social media following. He's the superstar now. And I think this is a big fight for both guys. I mean, can Jared go out there and stop the hype? Can Paddy go out there and prove that he is deserving of all this hype? And I think it's very cool to see two people at this point in their career meet. I think it's a very, very interesting fight, and I look forward to watching it because it's going to be a tough one for both guys.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. We mentioned Darren Till a minute ago. 4 losses in his last 5 fights. Is it a must-win fight for him on Saturday, or could he bounce back again if he doesn't get the W?
Well, I think it's a tough question because every fight is a must-win fight, right? I mean, that's the attitude we all should have. We should all go out there and this is a must-win because it's your career, it's your life, it's everything we put our energy into is to go out there and get the win. Losing 4 of his last 5 fights isn't ideal. I know he's had as I spoke earlier on, I know he's been out of competition for the last 14 months. And it'll be interesting to see what he's done in that time, how he's developed a skill, what he's been doing that we don't all know about. And see what is Darren Till in that octagon nowadays. And that's the interesting one, I believe. But every fight is a must-win fight.
Fair Fair. Okay, moving on to a few questions about Paddy now, your mate. Paddy has said himself versus Conor McGregor would be the biggest pay-per-view fight of all time, in his view. But who would win that fight if it happens, say, in the next 6 months, next year? No.
That fight ain't happening. And firstly, let's just clarify.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor versus anyone is the pay-per-view. Paddy's a co-main on a pay-per-view this week. Yeah. Let's see the numbers he gets. Conor has the history. Conor has the proof. He's got the records to show it. He's the pay-per-view guy. Conor versus anyone sells.
Yeah.
So that would be my first point on that. Yeah. And then secondly, I don't think that fight happens. And if it did, I don't really care at this point. Like, I mean, it's not a fight I'm interested to see.
Yeah.
It's not a fight that I'd be going, oh, I can't wait to see that. It's two guys at two completely different points in their career. One who's done everything he said he ever needed to do. One who has to prove it all.
Yeah.
So for me, I think Conor is the pay-per-view, and he's proved that. And Paddy has to prove that he's the pay-per-view now. So I think, if anything, that fight is fantastical.
High in the sky.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair point. If Paddy ever came up to welterweight, would you fancy sharing a ring with him on England or on Ireland cards? Would you fancy that?
I like Paddy, but I wouldn't want to do what I would do to him if we stood in that octagon. So I think he should stay. I think he should stay at 155. I'm a natural 170. I couldn't make 155 if I tried. Yeah. He's not a natural 170, so he'd be coming up against everyone in the welterweight division. Would have a massive advantage over Paddy in the fact that we would all be the naturally bigger guy. Yeah. So I don't see. I haven't heard of anything about Paddy moving up to welterweight. He makes 155 pretty clean, even though people fat shame him and he likes to prove them wrong. I like that about him. But if he moved up to 170, I would show him why it was a bad decision.
Yeah, the difference would count for a lot. You say, yeah.
100%. Paddy's a great fighter. And he's a great personality, but
at his own weight.
Your words, not mine. Your words, not mine, right?
Fair enough. We mentioned
if you're putting the news article out there, you make sure that was your words, right? You make sure that was your words.
I wouldn't do that to you. No way. Wouldn't risk that. But yeah, another thing we briefly touched on was social media followings and the kind of clout that can bring, and potentially. So Paddy's got 2.3 million Instagram followers. Sean O'Malley, 560,000 YouTube subscribers. You've racked up 160,000 Instagram followers. Do you think that there's kind of social media is becoming more important than the UFC ranking in terms of getting yourself a big fight?
Two answers. The UFC has no lack of amazing fighters. There's a reason why everyone who's signed to the UFC is signed to the UFC. It's because they're an elite fighter, right? However, the lack of personalities and people with storylines and excitements and good media. So social media is a brand. Social media is our job. And Paddy, Sean, me, a lot of us are working hard at it and doing it right. And I believe that brings interest into the fight itself, because people are emotionally connected to it from the Instagram on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to just a fight. So the UFC has no lack of fighters, of good fighters, but it has a lack of that cool personalities that people want to kind of buy into. So I don't believe it has more importance than the rankings, because at the end of the day, you have to earn the ranking. You have to earn that number one spot, or you have to earn that top 10 through performances. However, being a smart businessman outside the cage and doing your job and having a good social media is a testament to your hard work, and it should absolutely have some benefits to your fights. 110% it should, because it's hard work outside of the octagon, and then when you go into the octagon, you do what you love.
Yeah.
So
it's a balance of both, isn't it? Yeah, both are important.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the way the world is. Yeah. That's the way the world is. It's not just you can be the best fighter in the world and no one will tune in. or you can be the most amazing personality in the world and not the best fighter, and people will tune in. So it's about that, finding that perfect balance, and there are guys who have done a really good bloody job so far, and let's see how their careers go.
Yeah, fair. Right, enough questions about other people. Let's talk about you.
Let's talk about the good shit.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about how was your sparring session with Leon Edwards? That's the first question we got down here. How's your tooth?
My tooth's good. Thanks for asking.
Good.
Leon's great. Leon's he's a UFC champion for a reason. He's an elite level talent. He's proved himself to be one of the best fighters in the division, in the organization. Doubted by many for a while, but proved himself to be the champion. And I couldn't be happier to see him win that belt. He's a great athlete. He's got a lot of knowledge, and he's someone who I have the blessing of being able to travel up to Birmingham and train with and learn from. So it's really cool.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Has he helped you with your introduction to the UFC, or you kind of like been exchanged any words? Or
I wouldn't say he's helped me with my introduction to the UFC. I mean, I won the Cage Warriors belt and then got signed on my own hard work.
That's it.
But being able to train with the current UFC world champion in his gym, in his hometown, and learn from him and pick his brain in any way, shape, or form, there can be no negatives to that moving forward. And learning from anything that he could give me would all just be knowledge that I can store and have as experience. So I'm just very blessed to be able to share the match with Leon and see where the future takes us.
Yeah. Can't say for that. It's invaluable, those kind of knowledges.
Exactly.
So you're currently number 37 in the welterweight division. What targets have you set yourself for the coming year, now that we're nearly at the end of this year?
So the main thing for me, and the only thing that I care about, is winning. So however many fights I have this year, I've always said I'd love to have 3 fights a year, every year. Mm-hmm. It's the perfect balance of time off in between fights to grow and learn, and then go into the cage go into the octagon a different athlete, a different fighter with different tools. So the goal for me will always be stay undefeated, keep winning, and do it whatever way I see fit in the fight. If I can finish someone, I'll finish someone. Mm-hmm. If I have to stand there and pick someone apart for 15 minutes because they're a tough opponent, then that's it. As long as my hand gets raised, I don't care less. And I make sure that the person who's paid to watch that, or the person who's paid to come and sit in the seats, is having a good show. Mm-hmm. And I've put a spectacle on for them. That's all I want. I want people to enjoy my fights, and I want my hand to get raised.
Well, good luck to you.
I want to cut some people up in the time as well. I want to see some blood. I want to see some fucking beautiful violence. I'm not about going in there and just like tipping someone. I want to fucking hurt someone.
Exactly.
I want to go in there and see teeth falling out. I want to see blood pissing all over the mat.
That's what people want to see too. So yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Give the people what they want.
Give the fans what they want.
Yeah, 100%. And do you have any ideas of specific names that you want to fight next year, or just see who comes to you? Who's up for it?
Sean Shelby is a phenomenal matchmaker, and he has been through this rodeo with many, many, many prospects before me. I will put my trust in him to do his job the way he has done, which has been almost perfect. And let's see what he thinks is best for me. He'll send me a contract. I'll sign it, say yes. And when there's a fight that really tickles my fancy, I'll make sure that everybody knows about it once I've won the fight and I call someone out.
All right, then.
But that man's pretty fucking good at his job, and I'll put my trust in him to do what he's been doing.
Okay. He's got your best interests at heart, I presume.
100%.
So, yeah. Okay, makes sense. So far, you've had 3 UFC fights in the USA, but people want to know, when's the big homecoming?
That's coming. It's coming. All I have to do is keep doing my job, keep going out there and putting on amazing performances, keep going out there and impressing people in the company, and keep impressing the fans. I want that Dublin card. I want that UFC Dublin return. I'm going to earn it. I guarantee it. This year I will have earned that. Whether it's the end of this year we fight in Dublin or the start of next year, I am going to earn that UFC Dublin, because the Irish fans, they've done so much for the sport. They've traveled the world. They've caused chaos with the rise of Conor. Yeah. They deserve UFC return on our soil, on the Irish soil. And I'm the guy to do it. So this year, that is what I'm going to be pushing for. That, don't you worry. I'm going to be pushing to bring that card back, wherever it may be, whether it's in the Point, whether it's in the 3 Arena, the Aviva, Crow Park, whatever it is. We'll figure something out, and I'll make sure we'll figure something out, and I'll make sure that I put on a show that the fans won't forget.
You ever visualize walking out in that arena when you're in the gym, getting ready, like the reception you're going to get? It's going to be incredible, right?
Mate, it's. I haven't fought in Ireland since my 3rd professional fight. It's been all in the UK and then in the States. I would absolutely love nothing more than to go back to Dublin, put on an amazing UFC card with an amazing UFC main event, and me versus whoever the UFC think would put on a show, and get people to come and watch the fights, and give the Irish fans a show to remember, a night to remember. I was a Conor McGregor fan growing up, and hearing all that buzz around Ireland and seeing everyone get excited for him is what got me excited about the sport. And if that UFC Dublin card could excite one kid like me to fulfill his dreams and follow his heart and do what I did and completely immerse himself in MMA and follow his dreams and get to the position where I am now, it's that full circle. That's all I could ever ask for.
Generational, isn't it? So
exactly. It's just that one kid.
You inspire the next generation.
Exactly. There's just one kid that needs to come to that show. That show will change his attitude, change his life, and he will push himself harder than he would have, because he got to see it, because he's got to live that dream. Every kid who's a football fan has gone and seen Man United or Liverpool or Chelsea or whoever your club is, and wish they could play for that team one day. And it's the ones who have the hard work and the dedication to do it no matter what, to push themselves, that can reach that goal. Obviously, a certain amount of talent has to be had, but hard work is 90% of the battle. There's a lot of talented fighters who've gone nowhere because they didn't have the work ethic. And there's a lot of hard-working fighters that didn't have the talent that have made it to the top because they never stopped. And if I can have one kid in that arena that does what I did, I'll be a happy man.
All right, well, hopefully so. I'm sure there'll be more than one, to be honest.
That's the legacy, though. That's the continuation of that generational talent. It's legacy. It's making someone want to compete because they've seen that amazing atmosphere, and that's what I want.
We've got a question here. So, picturing that event, what would your dream card be on that event? Would you even care, or as long as you're there, doesn't matter to you really?
My dream card.
Yeah, you can pick the other fights, your opponent.
Right. Is this on a basis of a fight card that I'd love, if I was the matchmaker, I'd love to make?
Exactly.
I'm going completely fantastical then. I'm going as out there could be.
All right, let's have it.
Right. So all 5-round fights.
Yep.
Because I want to see as much devastation and violence and blood. And I want to see people get tired and people get knocked out and people get cut up and fucking smashed.
Absolute carnage.
Carnage. If we're going to make the ideal dream fight, you're going to put it in a stadium where there's like a Crow Park in Dublin, or the Dallas Cowboys Stadium in Texas, or
no,
wherever.
This is homecoming. This is still in Ireland.
We're doing it. Crow Park it is then. Center stage of 100,000+ fighters. You put one of the biggest cards ever made. The opening fight would be me versus Jorge Masvidal for the BMF belt.
All right.
Right? Because BMF belt is a lot of bollocks, but if anyone's going to have it, it shouldn't be him. That guy walking around acting like street Jesus, thinking he's a gangster. Why do you deserve to be the baddest man? Because you fight people. Great. That's your job.
Yeah.
So you should do your job. Don't be fucking thinking it's cool to go out and fight people on the streets. It's not. Be a good fucking role model for kids. So I'd love to smash him. That would be my first fight. I'd do that quickly, take the BMF belt, just because he doesn't deserve to have it. Let's put Wonder Boy and Israel Adesanya together. Put a show on for the fans. Two of the best strikers the UFC has ever been graced with. Put them together. GSP versus Anderson Silva. The super fight that never happened that we wish happened. Let's put that together. And if we're doing a fantastical card, it has to be a card whereby it's not just UFC fighters. It's personalities. It's people that bring eyes to the sport. It's people that people would absolutely pay to watch. So let's do a Gordon Ryan, the king of submission grappling at the moment, versus a John Jones.
Okay.
Let's put the greatest grappler on the planet right now against arguably the greatest of all time in UFC, and put them together and see what happens.
Oh, all right.
Then let's go complete. Let's put the two kind of. Let's put the evil Khabib and the good Khabib together. Khamzat versus Khabib. Let's watch that elite level wrestling. Let's see who wins.
Right.
Conor McGregor versus Jake Paul in an MMA fight. Let's see it happen. Let's see that UFC happen.
Someone's head's coming off.
Let's see that. Let's see those two personalities. Let's see it collide. Let's see it happen. And then the co-main event, a spectacle of Francis Ngannou versus Henry Cejudo. Let's watch that. Let's see how that Olympic wrestling gold medal hangs up against Francis Ngannou when he punches you into orbit. Let's see how that goes. I paid to watch the biggest fighter versus the smallest fighter. Would you?
Yeah, 100.
Yeah, fucking right you would. And then the main event, me versus Nate Diaz. I'll fight twice in one night.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I'll fight Nate Diaz just to prove that the other guy who fought in that BMF doesn't deserve to be in that. That guy's punch drunk. He's like a human punching bag. Yeah. Right? Let me go in there and show the world that he's human, that he bleeds, that he can be stopped, and let me punch a hole in his head. And then let's have that. That is the coolest UFC fight card you can make.
Stacked is an understatement, bro. You've
got big versus little. You've got the greatest of the greats in there. You've got the best grappler in the world. You've got the best.
Everything's there. Ticks all the boxes. All right, love that.
All the boxes. Yeah, 100%. And we've got that kind of YouTube sensation in Jake Paul versus the greatest sportsman in UFC history and Conor McGregor. Let's put them together. Let's see the madness. Let's see the pay-per-views, boys. Let's see how it comes out. That would be cool.
That would be very cool. All right.
I have to sit here and say that I don't think I could be the main event of that fight card. I think when you look at the names on that, you'd have, out of respect, I'd have to put the GSPs and the Silvas and the Connors and all them ahead of me.
I don't know. It's your homecoming event.
It's my decision. It's my fucking fight. I get to choose it. But I think out of respect, I'd want those guys to be above me. And I could sit back and just watch the fights.
Enjoy it. Yeah, I respect
that.
Respect that. Okay. All right, moving on. Cage Warriors, or organization you know well, have announced the launch of a Fight Academy competition with the winner set to bag $500,000 and the Cage Warriors contract. With many papers calling it the X Factor of MMA. Have you heard about this?
Not until right now.
Okay.
No, I've not heard about it.
What do you reckon, having just heard about it? What's your take on that? It's a bit.
So let's see it happen.
Yeah.
Cage Warriors is meant to go to Australia. They never did that. Let's see if it happens. They've I have to see it to believe it. Let me see it first, and then I'll give you my opinion on it.
At the moment, it sounds like it's in a kind of pre-planning stage. So
exactly, yes.
See whether it actually takes full form.
Yeah, let's see whether it comes true or not. There's been a lot of things that have been promised from the Cage Warriors crew, and the organization, and sometimes some of them haven't happened. I remember specifically they said they were going to go to Australia. That never happened. So let's see.
Maybe that was partly COVID related. Do you think? Maybe
I'd be lying if I said any other reason. I don't know what the reasons were, but I know it didn't happen. So,
but if it did happen, do you think it's a good idea, or it's a bit of a?
Well, what's the format? How are they planning on doing it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like almost like free trials, as in turn up, anyone gets a shot, and then progresses up through the pyramid towards kind of like how do they do it in boxing? The Golden Glove type thing.
Okay.
So like, I presume you have to battle your way through round upon round upon round to gradually whittle down the field until you get to kind of the last 8 or 16 people.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it sounds good. Let's see it come to fruition and then see how it goes from there. And then we can talk about it in more detail, I suppose.
Fair enough. Okay, let's move on. Got a few questions about Conor McGregor now.
Oh, who? Never have.
We're taking it back to the past. Obviously, you're the future and the present. But yeah, Conor McGregor has obviously been there, done that, worn a t-shirt in the UFC already. Has he got in touch with you at all about you or come up and how you've been progressing through the ranks, or is he just out there doing his thing? Haven't really heard much.
The only thing the only communication we had was after my UFC debut, when I did the "We're not here to take part, we're here to take over." And this is the takeover part 2. That was absolutely me giving a shout out to the guy who inspired me in a place where he became the double champ. That was absolutely me wanting to thank him and get the Irish crowd excited. And hey, we've got a second. This is it. It's happening again. You had one champion, you had one superstar. Now you've got another. And let's do it all over again. Get the Irish bandwagon out. Let's travel the world. Let's put on some shows. And what that guy did was absolutely phenomenal. And I could only hope that I could do anything. If minimal amounts of what he did, I would be happy with, because that guy did so fucking much. But yeah, no, he reached out to me and he sent me a message saying thank you for giving me some inspiration in a time where he was injured. And I thought that was really cool for my inspiration, the person who inspired me to follow my dreams. When I give him a shout out to basically say thank you in the octagon after winning my round 1 knockout, that he tells me that he was inspired by that and how he's going to come back hungry, and he's in on that takeover part 2. Yeah. So that was cool for me. That was a fanboy moment for sure.
Great stuff. That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. Okay. What do you think you can carry the Irish MMA community after Conor McGregor eventually hangs his gloves up? You feel that that's a baton he's going to kind of pass to you metaphorically?
I don't think any baton needs to be passed on. I think I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only current active UFC fighter from Ireland on the roster. And I've had 3 fights in the last 12 months and I've won all 3. I'm undefeated. I have the hype. I've been touted as the next Conor McGregor for ages. And the truth is, I'm Ian Garry. I'm Ian Machado Garry. I get this wrong. I've been married. I've changed my name. Ian Machado Garry. I'm the future for a reason. I have an attitude of I'm going to be the best. And I want to go out there and prove it. And I don't think any baton needs to be passed. Conor McGregor is Conor McGregor and always will be the person who changed the UFC. And I just hope to go out there and have my name in the conversation as the greatest of all time. That's all I want, is to have respect on my name as being one of the best fighters to ever enter the organization. And I think I'm leading that right now. Yeah,
your actions are speaking for themselves, right? You don't need metaphorical baton to be passed. Yeah. No. Fair enough. With Conor's currently out of the US ADA testing pool. Probably won't fight again until next summer. Who do you think offers the juiciest fight for him on his return?
I like the Michael Chandler fight, you know. I like the Michael Chandler fight. Yeah. I think it's interesting. I mean, Michael Chandler's a teammate of mine. He has had 5 fights in the UFC, and I would argue that there has been no one who's put on more entertaining fights in the UFC than Michael Chandler. When you think of his fights, Tony Ferguson, that team was absolutely insane. You've got Dustin Poirier, you've got Charles Oliveira, you've got Justin Gaethje, and you've got Dan Hooker. All phenomenal fights. Conor versus Chandler, make it happen. Let's see them chat shit to each other. Let's see them go in there, and let's see who wins. All I know is if I'm in the gym at the same time as Michael Chandler, I won't be able to bite my tongue. I'll have to say it. I'll have to give him shit about it.
Yeah. Do you think, can you see Conor making it back to world title level again, or are those days behind him now?
I don't think anything is behind that man. I think if that man sets himself a goal, it's up to him to complete it. And if he wants it bad enough, I believe he can get it. Like I said, that hard work and dedication is sometimes all that you need. And we know he's got that potential. We've seen him win 2 world titles. So he has that in him. Whether he wants it or not is the question. So yeah, he's been out of the USADA testing pool. He's gonna get back in it from stuff I've seen on Twitter. But right now, it's all speculation. Let's see if he comes back. And if he comes back you can guarantee that he'll be the big pay-per-view draw again. Everybody's calling him out. Everybody has been calling him out, and no one will stop. Everyone will continue to do that.
Yeah, until he's back, then he'll write his own history, right?
And then everyone will go quiet.
Yeah.
And then everyone will go
And
quiet.
everyone will be like, actually, no, wait.
No. It's just saying that for clout. It's just saying that. Yeah. I was just saying that because I wanted to get money. Yeah, everyone's throat starts to get a bit kind of hoarse.
Yeah.
No.
Speaking of Twitter, have you seen any of the back and forth between Conor and Joe Rogan? He's been trying to call him out for using PEDs, saying that's why.
I briefly seen this. I mean, I don't have any opinion on the conversation at all. I think it's that's just when Joe Rogan has an 8-hour long podcast and he's doing podcast after podcast after podcast after podcast with different guests in one day, shit's gonna get said, and that's what happens. And look, that's between them two. I have no say in it whatsoever. Leave it to them. I respect both guys, and I'm not going to say a bad word about either of them.
Good stuff. All right, let's rattle through a few more now. I've got a couple about YouTube boxing.
Yes.
Okay, Jake Paul is making a lot of noise about UFC and fighters' pay in the UFC. Do you think there's any merit in what he's saying with regard to payment?
I think Jake Paul is a phenomenal businessman. And what he is doing for himself as a person, as a businessman, his brand is phenomenal. I am very happy with the UFC contract I signed. I have no complaints.
Good stuff. Does it annoy you? Does it annoy you what Jake Paul, the way he flaunts it and goes around trying to rub it in UFC fighters' faces about that he's earning more money to get into your skin, or not bothered?
I'm worried about. I'm not worried. Worried isn't the right word. I am focused on becoming the best fighter I can possibly be, and that for me is the UFC champion. That is my goal. I want to be the UFC champion. I want to be, as I said to you, I want to be in the GOAT conversation. Yeah. And to be worried about someone else's paycheck isn't going to get me to be the best in the world. It's going to be a jealous outlook on someone else's success. And I think what Jake has done has been great. I mean, I was skeptical at the start of what he was doing, but then I seen a brilliant video of his. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it was on his Instagram, and I thought it was fucking genius, where he had like this kind of hot, like sexy nurse scene. Have you seen it?
I'm not sure. No.
It was fucking brilliant. What it was this is where like content is king.
Yeah.
And the way in which his mind and his team work is brilliant. So he had this kind of like sexy nurse shoot where he was on a bed with like an IV or a drip in his mouth or whatever it was. And he had this kind of sexy nurse come up to him and be like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And he's like, "No, I'm dying. I'm dying. I'm dying from carrying this fight, from carrying the promotion." I just thought it was fucking genius. Go find it. It was very funny. And that was like, that for me changed my attitude. That little short video was like, you know what? This is just someone who's out here putting the hard work in to be a boxer and putting the hard work in. And I seen the video of him hitting pads when he was younger and he couldn't fucking box snow off a rope. Yeah. And now look at him. He's looking more like an athlete. He's getting crisper with his hands. He's loud. He's brash. He's calling out Dana White. He's calling out Conor McGregor. He's calling out Paddy Pimblett. He's calling out all these people chatting shit. And you know what? He's bringing attention to him, to the UFC, to everyone around him. And
more power
he's
to
a
him.
very smart businessman. Yeah. So look, each to their own. I'm very happy with the UFC contract I signed. I was aware of what I was getting into, and I have no complaints against the UFC as an organization in what I've signed up to.
Glad to hear it. You mentioned him calling out Paddy Pimblett there. What was he said? Yeah, if he offered you $1 million for 8 rounds in a boxing ring, would you go for it?
Would I go for it?
Would you? Yeah. If he offered the offer that he...
Right. Listen to me. I would box 7 shades of shit out of Jake Paul, and I would do it for free.
That's my favorite quote of the interview so far. Nothing more needs to be said, does it? Yeah.
Nope.
No, I'd love to see that.
I don't. It's not. I don't even need to say any more about it. That's it.
That's fair. That's fair enough. I respect that. Oh yeah, I've got the next question here is how long would it take you to beat Jake Paul or Logan Paul in the octagon? And do you think YouTuber MMA could ever be a thing?
In the octagon?
I know, yes.
Oh, that's a brave man if he stepped into the octagon with me. Again, I think what the Paul brothers have done and what they, like, I mean, one of them's fought fucking Mayweather. That's insane. You know what I mean? They put on some amazing fights. They've got a lot of bums in seats and they've got a lot of people to pay to watch the fights. Like, they're very, very smart at what they do and they are kings of content and they've got a phenomenal brand behind them. However, if they stood into an octagon with me, I would beat the shit out of them for 14 minutes and 58 seconds. Because I would want them to know that I am better than them at what I do. And that is fight.
So there'd be no quick ending, would there?
No, I'd make them fucking struggle. I'd make them not want to be there. I'd make them want to quit. And when they want to quit, I'm not going to give them the option to quit. I'll tell them when they're done. I'll finish the fight.
Oh.
You know, one of those fights where you want the fans to kind of, you want the fans want it to be over because it's just so bad.
Yeah.
And I'll prove who the real king of this is.
All right. Wow.
And then we'll see that content when he's looking for scared, when he's got that fear in his eye and he doesn't want anything to do with me. And I'm like, hey, you asked for this. You stepped into my world. You shouldn't have done this.
Reality hits hard.
And I hit fucking hard. Don't you worry about that. They'd find out about that.
All right, a few more general UFC questions before we let you go. Out of all the current UFC champions, who do you rank as pound for pound number one right now?
Islam Makhachev.
Okay.
I think I don't want to butcher his name, but yeah, Islam. I think he's phenomenal. I think
Say no more.
I think he's got a lot to prove. Like, a lot to prove, as in people kind of compare him to Khabib so much, and I think he's a lot to prove to everyone else and to himself. But I believe he absolutely has that potential to be the best fighter in the UFC.
Like it. Let's leave that there. Will Leon Edwards fight Kamaru Usman in a trilogy next? And if so, do you think you can beat him again?
Yeah, I absolutely think that's what should be next. I think Usman deserves it as being one of the. We had Usman as potentially the greatest welterweight of all time. We were comparing him to GSP, correct? Mm-hmm. Leon goes out there and head kicks him into fucking next month.
Yeah.
Leon avenged his loss to Usman. Now they're one apiece. You tell me that Leon going into a fight with Usman after having knocked him unconscious, after he was losing the fight. He was down 3-1, right? He won the first round, lost all the 3 rounds after that, and then came out and pulled it out of the bag with possibly the most important head kick in UFC history. Now you tell me if they fight again, that the guy who had lost to Usman is going to be a different fighter. Having the confidence of going, the last time we fought, I knocked you unconscious. That Usman's not going to have a different approach to the fight going, fuck, he knocked me out last time. You tell me that the confidence isn't going to affect either of those guys, that it's going to be different. It'll probably be, I don't know where it'll be, but I'd like to see Leon defend it in his home country or in a stage where he deserves the respect. And I think absolutely that adds a different look to the fight when you put it in that perspective.
Yeah. Psychologically, like, the impact will be a lot to bounce back.
Massive. 100%.
Couple of questions about gambling and betting on UFC, if you don't mind that. Have you heard about the James Krause betting scandal?
I've heard about a scandal. I've seen stuff about it. However, it is, as of right now, an ongoing investigation, and we do not know the facts of the matter. And I think us speaking about it is
grey area.
It's just speculation and us chatting shit, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I think that I was reading that the fighters at the Glory MMA gym are being banned from fighting as a result, which seems slightly disingenuous. before the investigation's been completed?
Well, there was an email sent around. I know it was leaked on Instagram and stuff by the press. That Hunter Campbell sent an email around about the ongoing investigation and about what their actions that the UFC have done. But as of right now, it is an ongoing legal investigation, and we don't know the facts. So it is that. Let's find out the facts and speak about it more when we find out what it is.
How do you feel about betting in the UFC in general? Do you think fighters should be allowed to bet on other fights or their own fights, or just ban it completely? What's your take?
The amount of money I'd have made if I could bet on my own fights.
Yeah.
I'd just bet on me to win. So I think absolutely there's a reason that the code of conduct is there, that UFC fighters can't bet on themselves. There's a reason that you can't bet on your friends in the gym and stuff like that because of inside knowledge. Yeah. It's the exact same outlook on a USADA, for example. It's inside information on anything like that's going on. I mean, we don't know about fighters being injured, that teammates who are fighting might. It's the exact same. I think it's there to protect the fighters. It's there to protect the organization and make it and give it that seal of approval of we are legit. There's nothing fake about us. Look, we've taken fighters can't bet. Friends of fighters can't bet. They're all tested. They're all drug tested. There is no shady business going on. And I absolutely think it's completely fair that fighters can't bet themselves or their teammates, because any inside knowledge is unfair.
Yeah. Right, and it gives the organization as a whole more integrity, just to know that there's
absolutely, and that's important.
Guidelines.
So, and that's why when USADA were brought in, it makes the sport more legit, because you have all of these kind of speculations of, oh well, he's on steroids or he's on this. Well, it's well, I've passed X amount of steroids, so how can I be on steroids if I've? So yes, it absolutely adds a massive amount of integrity to sport and brings a lot to everyone watching it, knowing that these guys are legit.
Yeah, and on a more cheerful note, are there any UFC fighters from Ireland up and coming, younger than, apart from yourself, obviously? Well, you're already there now. Exactly. But anyone that you know that's kind of in their teens or coming up that you think is going to be big in the future?
There's a friend of mine, Paul Hughes, who recently unified the Cage Warriors belts and became the Cage Warrior champion. He was the interim champion. He took on his rival in Jordan Vucenic and got a dominant win over him and became the undisputed Cage Warriors lightweight champion. And I think he's the next guy to be signed to the UFC, whenever that may be. I think he's a great fighter with a lot of heart. He goes out there and puts on a show. I think he's definitely the next guy from Ireland that should be signed. And then we've added one more to the list. It's one more fighter that when we have that UFC Dublin card, puts bums in the seats, puts on a show for the fans, and we slowly grow this army of Irish fans traveling the world again.
Paul Hughes, yeah?
Paul Hughes.
Paul Hughes, all right.
He's a guy, he's a friend of mine, because when I got kicked out of my old team and they abandoned me 10 days out from a world title fight, he stepped in to corner me when I had nobody. And he's a good friend of mine, and I wish him all the success, and I hope and I wish that he gets to the UFC. And after his last performance, he will.
All right. Good luck to him. That's true friendship right there, stepping in the last minute. Good man.
Yeah, exactly. Of course it is.
Okay.
But respect for the guy.
Final question. Reports of TJ Dillashaw retiring after his nasty shoulder injury and his loss. Any words for him? Or
he shouldn't have fucking stepped into the cage with an injury like that. It's a bit ridiculous. But I mean, yeah, I think it's a bit stupid. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. If he's got an injury that was happening, he said 20 something times or something, that his shoulder popped out, it's a bit mental. Yeah. Protect your health. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Your health is the utmost concern to you. Look after yourself before fighting. So yeah, I think if he retires, it's probably a smart decision.